down those towers, cripple their communications, then raid the lab. Command wants the Hammer of Dawn, Command gets the Hammer of Dawn.
Dom, drop the hammer. That was my cousin's go-to quote every time we played Gears of War together, and he got hold of a Hammer of Dawn, or as he likes to call it, Hammer of Dom. The guy loved playing as Dominic Santiago. My cousin was pretty young when we started our tradition of finishing every Gears of War game on insane difficulty. Looking back now, it blows my mind to think that many of the young folks who played the first Gears of War game are now either entering college or are bona fide adults. For diehard fans of the series, the uncertainty following the less than spectacular reception to Gears of War Judgment, combined with Epic Games' decision to shift its focus away from campaign-driven titles, was a sad development. Case in point, I was reading the liner notes of this Japanese manga called New Game, and the author actually wrote a pretty poignant note about his experience with Gears of War, and how he and his friends grew from hopeless noobs to good players while developing great camaraderie because of it. He then goes on to say that they don't play as much anymore, and he wishes that a new game in the series would come out so they could do so again. This makes the arrival of Gears of War 4 both a cause for celebration and worry. On one hand, you have fans of the series who have been starved of a Gears of War fix for some time. On the other hand, the switch to a new development team can be a cause for concern as well, although to be fair, the Coalition also managed to snag Rodfordson, who played a key role in the first 3 Gears games. The good news is that Gears of War 4 definitely feels like a Gears game. Not only does it have the mechanics that I know and love, it even retains some of the little issues from the previous games, which is a testament to how well the development team managed to replicate the Gears of War experience. In a sense, it feels like coming home. This time around, the game features a new generation of protagonists. From a symbolic sense, that's quite fitting, as the game will need to attract a new generation of gamers to be successful. This edition's ragtag band of heroes is led by JD Phoenix, who looks like the perfect amalgamation of his parents. While he certainly has some of the stubbornness that his old man is known for, he isn't quite as rough as Marcus, and you can see traits of his mother in him as well. Backing up JD is the spunky Kate as well as Buddy Dell. This crew doesn't have the same dude bro testosterone feel of the classic cast, but continues to have a penchant for the light banter that the series is known for. Both Kate and Dell also can be picked by a second player in the split-screen co-op campaign. That's right, Gears of War 4 still has split-screen co-op, allowing series veterans to continue their old couch co-op traditions, while also letting folks like parents potentially introduce their kids to the series. It's definitely a big plus, given how Halo 5's decision to take out split-screen co-op raised questions about the fate of the feature for other games. Gameplay retains the mechanics that the series is known for, which is good news for fans. This includes the ability to seek cover and vault over them, or switch to another side or nearby cover spot. Don't expect that you can just turtle behind a safe spot, however. The game also has mechanics that allow you to stun folks hiding in cover, either by doing a running vault or sticking to the opposite side and grabbing the opposing player. This adds another layer of fun and strategy to the game, whether it be in the campaign or online multiplayer, as you don't want to be on the receiving end of such actions. It's definitely a case of do unto others what you don't want others to do unto you. At the same time, I also experienced some of the same issues from past games regarding the cover mechanics. There were times, for example, when I tried to stick to cover and I was unable to, which can mess you up when things get hectic. There were also times when I wanted to do something else, which is pretty much the opposite, and find myself sticking to cover instead. Weirdly enough, this actually made Gears of War 4 really feel like a Gears game to me. The actual shooting, meanwhile, feels as solid as ever, and retains the active reload mechanic that grants you temporary bonuses with a perfect reload. In addition to old stalwarts such as the Lancer and Gnasher, Gears of War 4 also adds several new weapons. One is the Buzzkill, which launches multiple round saws that can bounce and potentially behead foes when aimed properly. My personal favorite is the Drop Shot, which launches an exploding drill in a straight line at a distance of your choosing. The weapons add extra diversity to the game's inventory of firearms, which is always welcome. Storytelling has always been a strength of the series, and this one picks up a couple of decades after the events of Gears of War 3. The ending of Gears of War 3 supposedly put a period on the war between mankind and the Locusts, providing humans an era of relative peace. JD and his friends, however, soon stumble on a new kind of threat, kicking off another conflict for the planet's survivors. Although humans have started to recover from the destruction of its past wars, much of the locales in Gears of War 4 still involve battle-scarred ruins, which continues the game's post-apocalyptic feel. There's also a smidgen of a horror element in the game thanks to new snatcher monsters that, yep, love to snatch humans in their bellies. Grit in my belly. or something like that. Snatchers add a new mechanic to the game, as swallowed allies need to be freed by repeatedly attacking said monster, lest you get a game over. Foes also include more vulnerable juveniles, as well as more developed scions and armored monsters that take longer to kill. Although Gears of War 4 certainly has its moments of poignancy, they don't have the same emotional impact as those of past games, especially when compared to the storytelling of Gears of War 2, which I thought was the best one in the series from a storytelling standpoint. A lot of it has to do with the fact that they involve characters you haven't quite had time to be emotionally invested in, so the end result isn't as heartbreaking. In fact, one of the best parts of the game involve those that serious vets do have a history with, although newcomers likely won't get the same impact. The game's story also feels more like a prologue that sets up the series instead of a fully contained tale, so the plot feels a bit lacking toward the end. The lack of a worthy big baddie that lurks throughout the game, like Rom for example, waters down the exposition a bit as well. On an unrelated note, there are definitely more than a few Pacific Rim fans on the staff, including whoever worked on the post-credit cutscene. Now, one thing that the game does not skimp on are production values. The game does a good job in setting up big moments throughout the game, including one long sequence in the last act that turns up the Brumach section from Gears of War 2 all the way to 11. I don't want to spoil it, so all I'll say is that it was quite the enjoyable and empowering romp that really takes into account co-op play. Online modes are also quite plentiful and contains many familiar modes that Gears fans will love. These include Team Deathmatch, Dodgeball, King of the Hill, Arms Race, Guardian, and Warzone. There's also ranked escalation and execution, as well as the ability to play against bots. Naturally, there's a horde mode as well, which is pretty much a given. I mean, this is Gears of War after all. Admittedly, I didn't get to play online mode as much as I wanted to prior to launch, but it does feel solid and features an assortment of maps and customizations. The inclusion of cover countering mechanics also adds an extra level of aggression in the game that heightens skirmishes between aggressive and defensive players. Overall, I consider Gears of War 4 a worthy addition to the franchise, featuring beautiful and smooth visuals combined with solid campaign and multiplayer options. It likely won't be quite at the level of games in the original trilogy for hardcore fans, but it's definitely a step up from Judgment and brings back the series in the right direction. Overall, my final thoughts for Gears of War is that it marks a welcome return for the franchise after Judgment's tepid reception. The cover and shooting mechanics feel familiar in a good way, and the retention of split screen will get a hallelujah from fans. My cousin, for example, we haven't finished a game together like more than a year or two now, and so I went ahead, texted him, hey look, I got Gears of War 4, like he was there in my house that same evening. So, now storytelling isn't quite as dialed down as the original trilogy and feels more like an appetizer, especially given the lack of a memorable bad guy. Or girl, depending on your point of view. At a time when many games are dropping full-fledged campaigns, however, Gears of War 4 provides the best of both worlds for folks who like their robust online modes to come with a meaty offline component. For fans of the series, it's a much-awaited return home.
James, watch the tree!